And welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick, and today, guys, we're going to be jumping down into the XRP price chart analysis, taking a look to see whether XRP is in a bullish trend. Here we have XRP paired up with USDT on the hourly chart, and Binance is our data source. We're going to start on the smaller time frame, and then we're going to scale ourselves up into the larger time frames and take a look at what structures have emerged here. So as you can kind of see, we have consolidated down in our supply area. Okay, this is a range that is between 40.87 and 43.74 cent. Okay, so we can see that basically this is an area, if I shoot on over here, was previously demand. This is where buyers used to be. We lost this area back in November. We tested it and it turned into a supply area, basically where people are likely to sell. And right now we're testing the same range right here. And it's basically looking like we are, in fact, in another supply zone. So basically an area where people are selling. However, I still have higher price expectations. Somewhere between 45 and 46, I think is a pretty decent level to be aiming for, which is this one just up the top here. Now, from our structure, you can kind of see I was looking for this ABC structure to the upside, and it is still possible that this plays out. However, if that is the case, I think that we'd probably have to adjust a couple of things. One, I think this would actually be an ABC structure just in here, and it would fall a little bit short of the 1-to-1. We've then corrected down quite nicely here, okay, and then we can start talking about a move back upwards, okay, because I do think there's a little bit more room in the tank to the upside. Not much, but I do think there's more room upwards to be had here, and you can kind of see how this adjusted just a little bit. I'm going to adjust this little range, and I'm going to pull this right up here to 46.91, and a little bit higher there now, up at 48.82. I still think it'll be less than 50 cent. I don't think we're going to break that psychological area, but I do think that's an area that we should be aiming for. Now, from our internal wave counts down here, we are going to struggle just a little bit because I don't think we have huge amounts upwards here unless we start to make it a 5-wave structure, a 3-3-5 or something to that effect, really pushing us up into those higher ranges. It's possible, of course, but this one's actually showing us not leaving this supply range. So it could just be that we actually are pinned in down here and we fail to hit those upper highs. But looking at the structure, I would say it looks like we could do something like this and we could rally on up again. And again, this actually coincides nicely with a bigger ABC structure that we have, just taking us up into that higher range. So it's not too unheard of. It's not kind of like thinking too crazy about the movements or anything like that. It is definitely a possibility. We can definitely see that in here. If I can actually just snap that, there we go, to the bottom there. We can move this over to here. And we can see that even this would show us it moving out at around 49.79 and could potentially even, if we really, really wanted to stretch things out, which I don't think we will, but, you know, it's got to push past 50 cent, which will be 53, 56. I think it's a bit of a stretch target, that, because I think 50 cent is going to be a bit of a barrier psychologically for retail investors, and people love to sell on round numbers like that. So I'm going to leave those there so you can kind of see that there's a potential move here where we could have something like this occurring, but I would say that's a bit of a long shot. So when it comes to XRP's price on the kind of smaller time frames, we are looking at that kind of upward directional movement. We are above the 50 EMA at the moment, although we're really testing it. We're just dancing around the 50 and the 200 EMA on the hourly chart. They're not overly impressive, on the smaller time frame anyway. We are in the oversold area, so I am thinking about a move upwards here on the smaller time frames for XRP. Now, when we come up into the 4-hour chart, we are actually progressing up into the overbought. We're not there yet, so the upward movements are going to be a bit of a struggle on the 4-hourly chart. Not necessarily going to be the be-all and end-all. It's not necessarily going to stop us too much, but we do need to be aware that the 4-hour is vastly different to that of the hourly and the 8-hourly, because the 8-hourly is nice and low, showing us with loads of momentum to the upside. So we want to be aware that things are not quite right on that 4-hour chart, and we should be a little bit cautious about what that might mean as time progresses here. Now, as we go into the 12-hour, loads of room to the upside. 16 hours is the same, the 20 hours is the same. When we get to the daily, though, this is really where we start to see problems. Okay, so yes, we pierced past our trend line here. Okay, if I zoom out of this just a fraction here, you can kind of see the trend line. We did break through the trend line, but we've now come back below it. Okay, so we failed to really turn it into a support level, which probably tells us that our trend line is not correct. Okay, if we haven't respected it in enough kind of ways to say that we've broke through it, we turn it to support, it's probably not in the correct areas, right? And you can kind of see how these two are just narrowly missing. So it's probably that we need to adjust this, trend line if we wanted to draw one on there. But it's probably also worth noting that we are below the 200 daily EMA now, really struggling in this area. So trying to push up higher is going to be a struggle on the daily chart. Now we can wick up higher, but I wouldn't expect us to close massively above that 200 EMA. As you can kind of see, we closed here, then we opened and dragged it all the way back down again. So if we are to close above that 200 EMA, it's going to be a big fight for XRP to stay above it. So we want to be aware of that. You can see this time and time again. All the times that we've pushed above the 200 EMA, it's been very short-lived, maybe a week or so at best. And I think that's going to be very much a similar story here on our daily chart. Now, the weekly also shows us with a little bit more of an upward directional move. We have some momentum to go and take us up into the overbought area. You can see a death cross looming here, just on our 50 EMA, the red line, and the 200 EMA, which is the white line. Essentially, when the 50 crosses lower than the 200, the shorter time frame, so the shorter EMA, so the 50 candle EMA, is basically showing you your average price movement only over a 50-day or 50-week period. And then, of course, your 200 is a 200-week period. So your smaller EMA is crossing lower than your longer term price, basically is indicating more bearishness. Okay, basically you're unable to keep above that longer term average. People see that and deem it as a negativity. Although it is only representing what's already occurred, it doesn't show you the future, it only tells you what has happened. We should be aware that that will be deemed quite negative with a death cross. But XRP is not the only one that has this. Many do on the weekly charts, and so we should be optimistic where we can. I still think we can test this 200 EMA on our weekly chart, which basically does mean pushing up into those high 40s, but not really pushing up past and into the 50-cent ranges. There is a lot of resistance to be seen up in that 50-cent range. You can see it all the way in here. So I do think that's going to be respected, and no, we're not likely to push on through it, specifically as we come up into the overbought area on our weekly chart here. Now, if I get rid of the stochastic and bring in the volume, one of the key things that I've been talking about recently is how volume is decreasing, right? We can see quite clearly here that volume has been decreasing ever since we had that initial push upwards in September. Okay, so we can see that volume for XRP hasn't been overly impressive, but that's also to the downside. So we should respect the fact that there was higher volume taking it up initially and then lower volume taking it down. But that volume taking it down, of course, has also been respected to the upside, as in we are not exactly giving ourselves a good area here. Now, the obvious, and I say it's the obvious, is we have come up into a higher high whilst the volume has come down into lower highs. This would be bearish divergence and telling us basically the move to the upside isn't really backed by volume. Now, if you're following the Bitcoin videos, that's a similar story there. So it's not just XRP, it is the entire space as a whole. Now, as we kind of come up into our RSI, there isn't terribly too much to note on the RSI side of things from the weekly standpoint. Everything here is actually pretty okay, other than the fact that we did have bearish divergence up here as we were up high here and a lower high in price. We set a higher high on our RSI. I think we're probably going to be doing something similar as the RSI continues to climb up, without us going up higher than the previous high that we were testing, the 50 EMA. Now, on the daily chart, we can see it very much a lot clearer than we can on the weekly. Okay, we can see here straight off the bat how our RSI has, of course, gone up into higher highs. Okay, we can quite clearly see that. And we can see even from this movement up here where the price has come down into lower highs, right? Lower highs on the price movements, but higher highs here on the RSI. So again, more bearishness to be seen on those larger time frames. So just be aware that we're not trending to the upside. So to answer the question of the title of this video, no, we're not trending. There's no trending structures. We haven't broken above the trend EMAs. So we'd look at a 200 EMA in traditional finance, like Forex markets and things like that. And we would say if you're below the 200 EMA on a daily or a weekly time frame, then you're bearish. There's not bullishness to be seen there. But if we break above it and we confirm it as a support level, well then that does change things a little bit from a certain standpoint. From an Elliott wave theory point of view, I cannot see a trend anywhere, so it doesn't appear that we are in a 5-wave impulsive trend structure, and therefore this is all corrective. I do believe that we are going to have to correct on down. I have a feeling that we probably will end up going down into new lower lows on XRP. but that isn't, it's not a guarantee, right? So we'll be optimistic and we'll think of, just a nice correction coming down, maybe retesting the existing lows, and no new lower low. But I personally do think that the lower low is more likely on XRP than it is on some other altcoins, just based on the structures that are there from an Elliott Wave theory point of view. Of course, that could be wrong, and we can see how we correct down, and we'll see and pretty much be able to ascertain whether or not we should be concerned about new lower lows on XRP reasonably quickly as we start to correct on down. So the key there is to really avoid things like zigzag patterns or impulsive patterns as we go down into the correction that I do think is likely to occur over the next few weeks. Other than that, guys, I think, it's pretty much business as usual for XRP. I'm going to close this video off. If you found it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you're new, then why not go ahead and subscribe, and why not join us down in Discord, linked in the description down below. It's a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free, and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there. Until the next one, guys, have a fantastic day.